Hi, Misha here. That was my very professional interpretation of Discovery Klingon speech. Yeah, season 1 was very boring for me, at least when the Klingons were on the screen, because subtitles. Yeah, was very bored. Also, it's Kalis, not Kalish. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they did any things. I think I put about as much thought into my mocking speech there as they did some of their dialogues. Anyway, let's talk about the Ship of the Dead, the Sarcophagus ship. The first special, the first oversized ship that Eagle Moss did for Discovery. On to the spinny thingy. Yes, this is large, both in real life and in universe. Certainly over a foot long. I'm going to say, little spiny things. Not spidey things, but spiny things. I don't know, 13, 14 inches. Over a foot. And in universe, it's said to be over 2,500 meters. Even doing my 2/3 thing, that still gets us about 1,700 meters long. That's ginormous by Star Trek standards. Maybe not by Star Wars. But, of course, the Enterprise, the original, 1701, was 300 meters or less. The Enterprise D, 650 meters, a little bit less, actually. And the Enterprise E was about 700 meters. Even ships like the Scimitar, the Riemann Scimitar, were under 1,000 meters. And the Borg Cube was 3,000 meters on a side. So, shorter than a Borg Cube, but even with my adjusted scale, it's a little over half a Borg Cube long. Although, as you see, hopefully, it's pretty narrow, all things considered. So, yeah, Discovery scaling. And this is said to be an old ship, at least 200 years old in Discovery, meaning it was built around our time right now, give or take. So, early to mid 21st century human time. At least 200 years, maybe even much older. The reason I say that, it has an interesting armor system they called the Black Fleet, which are a bunch of sarcophagi, on the hull, linked together with dead warriors. And Saru says in the pilot episode of Discovery that they seem to be anywhere from a few days old to thousands of years old. Of course, it's entirely possible, even probable, that the oldest ones were put on the ship, not originally there. Either way, old ship. Now, I wasn't a super fan of the Klingons as they appeared in Enterprise. I like Enterprise as a series. I didn't like the weirdness with the Katinga, and I didn't like how the Klingons had seemingly more advanced weapons in Enterprise than Earth. It always seemed like Earth and Kling, which is what the home planet was originally called before being named Kronos. I remember in, the 25th anniversary game that came out in 1991, if you used the ship's computer on the Enterprise and looked up the Klingon homeworld, it literally said Kling. Good times. Anyway, how could they make a warp ship back then? And this one has directive energy weapons, torpedoes, and it had what they considered stealth mode and later just gave up and called it a cloak. Although, admittedly, it wasn't as advanced of a cloak. It was a cloak. How could Klingons be making this essentially right now? 2022, whatever. Well, I have a suggestion that kind of helps both Enterprise and Discovery. Let me know what you think. And that is the Herc. As we know from Deep Space Nine, the Klingons had an interesting first contact with an alien race when they were invaded by a nomadic, presumably warlike, basically space Vikings, okay? The Herc were space Vikings. They raided Kronos, sacked, stole a bunch of stuff, probably tried to rape a bunch of Klingon women and got murdered for their trouble, hopefully. Anyway, Vikings stuff. It seems like they occupied Kronos for a little while and then left, never to be heard from again. But one would assume that they left behind technology. And it's kind of assumed that this is where the Klingons got warp drive, at least eventually. Reverse engineering, maybe kind of like the Kazon. If you think about how the Kazon got stuff from the Trabe, maybe early Klingons were a lot like those. Kind of taking Herc ships and whatnot from them and going into space. So that would explain why they had a little bit of a head start in Enterprise, but maybe we're more on parity with humans in the 22nd century by the time of TOS. Because Klingons were good warriors, not stupid, but maybe not the best scientists and inventors, so what they had reverse engineered from the Herc were coming to an end. Just an idea. That would explain Enterprise a bit. It would also explain this ship. What if this was either A, one of the first Klingon ships built, is maybe a generational ship with a very early warp drive, or none at all in the beginning, hence the huge size, because any kind of generational ship, any kind of colony ship is going to be necessarily very, very big. Also, if these are warp engines, my goodness, they're the biggest warp engines, warp nacelles we've ever seen in Star Trek, which would make sense if they were very primitive or it needed tons of redundancy. So maybe this started off maybe as a pre-warp ship or early warp ship and either a generational ship or a colony ship for Klingons built with some reverse engineered Herc technology. Or B, what if it were a Herc ship that the Klingons liberated, took? That would explain its age. It would also explain why it's considered to be a holy ship, a historical relic, a holy relic. Just, food for thought. While it does have weapons, and it does have a cloak, it doesn't seem to be primarily superly heavily armed for its size. It doesn't necessarily seem like a straight warship. Obviously, it has combat abilities, but you'd think with its bulk and everything, it would just have disruptors, turrets, torpedoes everywhere, and really strong armor and shields. Saru even says that the armor system isn't especially effective, meaning this is more of a ceremonial or ornamental ship. In the real world, they credit cathedrals, Gothic architecture, some Muslim, more religious buildings. The iconography behind it was more religious-based, more art-based than it was military-based. So, yeah, I don't know. Now, the size is still massive, but a lot of that is the engine. If you look at the central section, if we assume the nacelles are like most nacelles, not having much in them except engineering stuff, our central section here isn't too big. I mean, it's long, but yeah. Now we see the bridge is kind of multi-level, very big bridge. And one other thing we see that we don't really see on any other Klingon ship is the operators, the crew, use masks to interface with the computer systems and the drive systems. If this were Herc technology, either reverse engineered or even taken from them, that would explain the alternative interface that we don't really view on any other Klingon ships, not even in Discovery. So, I kind of feel confident about my Herc connection. Beta canon, yes, but it does fix some problems. And is an interesting thing when we see the humans' first contact with Vulcans, how it went, and then think about how Klingon Herc First Contact would have gone. What I'm basically getting at, wouldn't it be neat to have like a mini-series or TV movie, DVD movie of Klingon meets Herc? I don't know. Hell, cast Michael Dorn in it, just call him an ancestor. They do that all the time in Star Trek, so yeah, get all of our favorite Klingons back, put them in different makeup, put them in a film where the first early Klingons first get subjugated, then fight back. And so many potentials in the Star Trek universe that they don't do. I'd also love to see a movie about the Romulans leaving Vulcan and finding Romulus and Remus. That'd be neat. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, the Ship of the Dead. So what of the model? Like I said, it is big, and it just sits at a cradle stand. It actually sits in the stand very well, slotting in. It's not going to go anywhere. The worst thing you can say is it has all these little sticky-outy bits on the end. So wherever it is, I wouldn't put it up against a wall. It is a good size. It does have some honest-to-God weight to it. The nacelles are primarily plastic, and the center section is primarily metal. Even up to the head, it does turn more plastic towards the end of the head, but the neck, the center section, part of the pylons are metal. So basically the inner bit's metal, outer bit's plastic. And from what I've been told, there is some see-through stuff or whatever on the nacelles. This is one of the first Klingon ships, maybe the first I ever picked up. But I wasn't going to pay the $79 or whatever. I actually found that on a really good sale for like $35 on Amazon. It just, for that, I thought, you know what? It's a leading role in the first season of Discovery, at least until he gets blowed up. And I'd read that it was kind of a proto-Klingon ship, very clearly Klingon design. I wanted to feel it for myself. Boy, saying those words, those have got me into trouble in the past when I was younger. So yeah, neat enough model, good size. Worth $30? But $30-$40? Probably. Comes with a magazine. Usual things. So in universe history, like I said, it was a holy ship, old, and belonged to the House of Tukuvma. And somehow they lost the damn thing. I don't know how. I don't know how. And Tukuvma says that he played in it as a child. How could he have played in it as a child and then they lost it? Okay, whatever. Anyway, he refound it in the 2250s, recommissioned it, used it as his flagship, used the cloak technology on board to give Klingons an edge. It's a thing, whatever. Again, mostly told by subtitles that I was not privy to during the first watch through, before I asked someone and read online transcripts. So yeah, it was the flagship. It fired the opening shots of the Earth-Klingon War, Starfleet, Federation, whatever you, in 2256 in May. And it was promptly disabled by the Shinzo, who beamed over a photon torpedo, which, happily enough, destroyed its dilithium processing unit. And then, for some reason, the captain and first officer beamed over and killed Tukuvma. Okay, that doesn't... Again, we know the first episodes of Discovery were some of the worst ever. But either way, the commander, the leader of the house was dead. The ship was crippled. It was alone. And months later, they were running out of food and things to do. Again, my first video, we looked at the bird of prey. I still think that is their food. They ran out of plucked chickens to eat. So, Vok, they say it both ways, went over to the Shinzo, which was abandoned. I don't know why they did that. That was really silly. They should have either done self-destruct, or if the ship was that salvageable, gone back to pick it up. So if Starfleet had not left Shenzhou there, they wouldn't have been able to steal the dilithium processor off of it and get this ship back up and running. But it was too late for Volk, because Call of the House of Kor came over, bribed the crew. It's amazing what starving people will do for, a piece of targ meat. And had a little bit of a revolution, took the ship for himself. And then he started using its cloak technology to get loyalty. And the Starfleet Klingon War progressed. And this was the flagship, the command ship, often classified as a dreadnought. But again, he was more using it because it was prestige than maybe the best warship ever. And I say that because once the cloak was penetrated, it was pretty easy to bloat it up. Whole thing in Discovery. So it didn't actually make it to the end of the war. It was destroyed months before. And the war continued without it. But the cloak was its main thing. And it was kind of a predecessor of something like the Negvar later, a large command ship for more prestige than actual combat abilities. And I have to say, this does seem like a Klingon ship to me. Size not considered. We have the head, the neck, central body, and what looked to be very primitive compared to later engines, nacelles, what have you. Yeah, I honestly buy this as a Klingon ship, at least an old one. It does not look like a super threatening warship outside of its size itself. And with that, let's make a little comparison to the D7. Well, the Discovery D7. Now, don't worry, this one gets its own full video. But just to compare structure, size, shape, and physical size of the models, because this is a standard Discovery size, which is the medium, the special size before in Eagle Moss's series. Like I said, this is over a foot, maybe 13 to 14 inches. But these are no slouch. These models tend to range from 7 inches up to about 10, depending on which one they are. And I think this is definitely the most recognizable Klingon ship we find in Discovery. And it almost makes you think, once they had this ship and plans to it, that it could have influenced designs to go back to this, which, to be fair, we see ships of this general layout in Enterprise too. So this does seem to be the traditional Klingon way of making a ship. But yeah, just thought it'd be a neat comparison. Again, the D7 will definitely have a full episode. So, yeah, I don't hate this ship. It's certainly one I'm glad they did as a special, because it was a one-off ship. This doesn't seem to be something that was ever mass-produced, coffins and all. I know there's an objection that, Klingons don't care about the carcasses after someone's dead. That's actually taken from a single discussion in Heart of Glory, Season 1 of Next Generation, with the renegade Klingons. Let's just say that they were renegades, and Klingons probably have different sects and ideas. And anyway, lots of things were said in Season 1 of Next Generation that were not true. For example, that humans no longer ate meat. And, yeah, all the anti-drug stuff, courtesy of Nancy Reagan, Tasha Yar. So, things said once in Season 1 or any season of a fictitious show, whatever. Of course, other Klingon ships from Discovery don't follow this form plan. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying I necessarily like the ancient ship angle. But I think if we consider this to be a Herc ship, to one degree or another, yeah, we could do worse. I especially do like the head. That is a very Klingon-looking head. The top and the bottom of the ship look virtually identical. So it's possible I have this on the stand upside down. Probably I do since I recorded it this way. But they're very similar, with just slightly different patterning. Oh well. So yeah, second Klingon episode, and first of the Eagle Moss Discovery specials. And yeah, I would say they definitely gave it some extra size and detail, and it's a pretty stout model. Also, their D7 is pretty freaking awesome. I'll admit this right here and now. So, I invite you in the comments below to give your own best sampling of Klingon voices and speech. If you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. This is Misha, and I will catch you very soon next time.